إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده، فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة وصاحبها في النار. عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله العلي القدير القائل: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسألك الناس عن الساعة قل إنما علمها عند الله وما يدريك لعل الساعة تكون قريبا. Men ask you of the hour, say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the knowledge of the hour is with Allah only. What can convey the knowledge unto you? It may be that the hour is near. Also in Surah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, فَهَلْ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَّا السَّاعَةَ أَنْ تَأْتِيَهُمْ بَغْتَةً فَقَدْ جَاءَ أَشْرَاطُهَا فَأَنَّى لَهُمْ إِذَا جَاءَتْهُمْ ذِكْرَاهُمْ. Await, they ought save the hour that it should come upon them all of a sudden. And the beginnings thereof have already come. The signs of the day of judgment have already come. But how, when it has come upon them, can they take their warning? Well, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was asked about the hour, one time he answered, "What did you do for it?" And another time he said, and he pointed his two fingers like that my advent and the hour are like these two fingers. So we understand from the Quran and from the Hadith that the first sign of the Day of Judgment is the birth of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we are right now in the last stages of life, the fifth stage. And as a quick recap, it's the stages of life. The first stage was the spiritual stage. The second stage when we were in our mom's womb. The third stage is the test stage when we are in this life. This is the stage we are in right now. And the fourth stage, which we just finished, is the life in the grave. And it's the ulama describe it as as-sa'atu as-sughra, the small hour. This is the first step toward the Day of Judgment, is the life of the grave. So that's why Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, whenever he gets asked about the hour, what did you do for it? We know that the signs of the Day of Judgment came, and it came with the beginning, with the birth of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the ulama divided signs, the small signs especially, the big signs we're going to talk about it later on, not today. But the small signs, they divided it into like three categories. One category is, it happened one time and never going to happen again, like the birth of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another category is the small signs that we see and keep repeating. It started from a while back and they keep repeating, and they're gonna keep repeating until the Day of Judgment. And the third category is the small signs that we have not seen yet. Maybe I'm not gonna get the chance to talk about those signs that have not appeared yet. But some of the signs that appeared one time, it's like the fire that came from Hijaz, from the Arab Peninsula, and that toward the end of the Abbasi Empire, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said there will be a fire coming from there, that it will be seen in Busra al-Sham, and Busra al-Sham is a city in the southern current Syria. Also, he told us about the conquering of Jerusalem. He told us about the conquering of Constantine, which is Istanbul today, and many other signs that we see one time. But every time, the problem with talking about these signs, every time that a problem happened or a plight happened to the Muslim Ummah, automatically the Muslims start saying, oh, we are at the end of time. The end of time is coming near. We already know from the Quran the end of time is near. Okay? But they talk as if the end of time is going to come tomorrow. Nobody knows when is the end of time. And they always talk about that when they see Muslims are weak. The same thing happened with Muslims when they were attacked by the Mongolians toward the end of the Abbasi Empire. The same thing happened to the Muslims when the Crusaders took Palestine. They said it's about the Day of Judgment is around the corner. The same thing happened when the Mamalik start misbehaving and giving up Palestine a couple of times even. Again, and there was division among the Muslims. The Muslims also at that time were saying it's the end of time. So not when we see the Muslims weak, that means it's the end of time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نَصْرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and it was due from us to aid those who believe. So the condition is for those who believe, that Allah promised us victory. And the famous ayah that we repeat all the time in Surah Al-Hajj, وَلَيَنْصُرَنَّ اللَّهَ مَنْ يَنْصُرَهُ, that Allah certainly aid those who aid His cause. Are we aiding Allah's cause? We have to be sincere to ourselves. Are we aiding His cause so He can aid us? And another ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises victory to the believers. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمَلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Allah has promised to those among you who believe and work righteous deed. So He put the condition over here to believe and do righteous deed. He never says in the ayah, or the Rasul never says in the hadith about us responsible for results. The results is from Allah. But the promise from Allah that He said, if you do that, He's وَلِيُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينَهُمْ الَّذِي ارْتَضَى لَهُمْ وَلِيُبَدِّلَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا. That if you do believe and do righteous deed, that you will inherit, there will be the power in this earth, and will establish the authority on their religion, the one which He has chosen for them, and that He will change their state after the fear in which they lived to one security and peace. So this is a promise from Allah. Not every time we have a problem, not every time. We've been down for over 200 years. And you hear Muslims all the times talking, oh, it's the end of time, it's the end of time. Then when you sit down and talk to them, okay, what did you do for the hour? They don't answer. What did you do saving for your kids? They start talking all the schemes and scams on saving money for their kids and their retirement. Well, if you believe the Day of Judgment is tomorrow, why are you saving all this money? Why don't you give it to the mosque? You know? And this kind of failure mentality, we need to stop it. We know that the signs are here and the hour is close by. We have to work on ourselves at all times. And another mistake, a lot of Muslims say that the Rasul predicted. The Rasul does not predict. The Rasul wahyun yuha. al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha said, whoever says in the Rasul predict, he's transgressing on the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Rasul was revealed to him these signs, and he told these signs to us. One of the small signs that is mentioned in the Quran, and it's in the chapter 54 in Surah Al-Qamar, the moon chapter, and from the beginning of it, it says اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر, that the hour of judgment is near and the moon is cleft asunder. So we know these signs are here. Also from the famous hadith that we repeat all the times, Rasul, that Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Rasul and put his hand on his thighs and asked him about Islam and about faith. Toward the end of the hadith, Jibreel alayhi salam said, أخبرني عن الساعة, asking Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, tell me about the hour, meaning the Day of Judgment. So Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam answered, ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل, that the one you ask does not know more than the one who's asking. So in another word, right here, we understand Rasul didn't know when is the hour going to happen, and Jibreel alayhi salam doesn't know when the hour is going to happen. So all these, some scholars in the past, I hear some today, they try to come to calculations and understandings from hadith to come up with a date for the hour. Don't concern about yourself about the date. Nobody knows the date. And all these things are wrong. And nobody should be talking about the exact date of it, because it's very clear in the Quran and the Hadith, nobody knows. So Jibreel alayhi salam said, give me, فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنْ إِمَارَاتِهَا. Tell me about its signs. So he said, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أَنْ تَلَدَ الْأَمَةُ رَبَّتَهَا. That the slave woman will give birth to her master. وأن ترى الحفاة العراة العالة رعاء الشاء يتطاولون في البنيان. That you will see the barefooted poor shepherds went from rags to riches, building huge buildings like you see these days in the Gulf world. So this sign already took place. And not only that, when we talk about the slave woman give birth to her masters, there is also this total disrespect to mothers and fathers. There is another hadith for Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam that the kids will be disobeying their parents, and the kids will rather their friends and shun their fathers. And we hear and we see people insulting their own biological mothers and treating them bad and putting them in senior home citizens and don't want to take care of them, and their parents the same thing. And what's even worse than that is the way you see some people treat and talk about Ummahat al-Mu'mineen when they slander them and talk bad about them, especially al-Mu'mineen Aisha, al-Mu'mineen Hafsa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically says in the Quran, zawjatuhu ummahatuhum, that his wives are their mothers. Who's there? The believers. If we believe ourselves we are believers and Muslims, then every wife of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam is our mother. Anyone who talks about his mother that way, that's a person with no honor. Anyone denies the 11 wives of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam denies the absolute text of the Quran and needs to renew his faith. Okay, so these kind of signs that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam already told it to us, and we need to be aware of it. So these signs is like an open book test, and unfortunately a lot of us failed in it with a PhD degree. So we should always be renewing our faith and checking ourselves, like Allah mentioned in the Quran, be to always have high faith and do righteous deeds. Are we actually doing that? And another famous hadith in Bukhari wa Ibn Majah wa Ahmad, that Rasul through the Sahabi Auf ibn Malik, that he came to that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said during, and that was a year before he passed away alayhi salatu wasalam, in the battle of Tabuk. He said, "U'dud sittan bayna yaday sa'a," that count 6 until the hour, if it happened, that is. And he said the first thing is his death, mauti, and the second thing, like we mentioned, is the conquering of the Jerusalem, and the third thing is the mutan ya'khudhu fikum kaqi'as al-ghanam. He's talking about an epidemic that took place in after conquering the Jerusalem, and this is an incident, this is a sign that took place only one time. It was a plague that tens of thousands of Sahabis died, and it took place in a city called today Ramla in Palestine. And among the Sahabis that passed away is Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu and Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Also in this hadith he's talking about istifadat al-mal, that there will be a lot of money, that there will be no poor person to give zakat to. And this happened before Khalifa Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and we know that's the only time that it happened. There was a lot of money to the degree that no poor person deserved zakat, that Khalifa Umar ibn Abdul Aziz used this money to help the people, the youth, to get married. And this sign will happen again toward the end of this is a small sign, but it will happen again toward the end of time. It will be during the advent of Isa alayhi salam, and we'll talk about it more when we come to the big signs. And the last sign we'll talk, it's also a sign that did not take place, which is about the truce that will happen between us and the Romans, whoever is going to be the Romans of that time. But also he said there will be fitna, and this is what we live in today, what we facing today. Fitnatun la yabqi baytun min al-arabi illa dakhalat. That there will be a civil strife, that it will not leave an Arab house that it did not enter it. And there was another hadith to coincide with this one, that Rasulullah said, لا تقوم الساعة حتى تقتتل الفئتان دعواهما واحد. That there will be two groups fighting each other, but their call is one. And this took place with the fitna that took place between Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib and Khalifa Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. But Rasul was very specific that their call is one. So in other words, they were both in the correct path, but one was more right than the other, who is Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, obviously. But unfortunately, people who are mischievous, who are sinners, who are hypocrites, use that problem, use that fitna, use that civil strife that took place, and divided the ummah in different groups, that we're still suffering from it until today, to the degree cousins are killing cousins in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and now Yemen, because the differences between the different sects of Muslims. Also, from the signs that Rasul talked about, that ignorance will be increasing, and the knowledge of religion will be raised, and there will be a lot of fornication. And he specifically, I'm not talking about the countries who are not Muslims. We're talking about Muslim countries. There will be a lot of fornications and drinking liquor. And this happens a lot in the Muslim countries, and in a lot of Arab countries, actually there is no punishment for fornication or drinking liquor. As a matter of fact, a lot of them manufacture their own liquors and sell it, and pride themselves with it. Okay? And he said there will be a time يقل الرجال ويكثر النساء حتى يكون ل50 امرأة القيم الواحد. There will come a day that the men will be less than women, to the degree for every man will be 50. A lot of people say, well, that never took place. It did take place, and will repeat, and every time there is a war. If you go back to Google, post-World War II, in Germany, after the World War II, for every man there was 50 women. Exactly. In Vietnam, almost close to that number. So every time there is a war, there is less men than women. So this is a sign that repeats itself all the times. And another sign Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam talked about, and this is a famous hadith that we all know, that يوشك الأمم أن تداعي عليكم كما تداعى الأكلة إلى قصعتها. That nations will be attacking you just like when people go toward a big, huge plate of food, and we all go to it, and each one take a piece of it. This is how nations will come and attack us. This happened during the Mongolian time, happened during the Crusaders, happened before. Maybe now it's worse during World War I when it divided the Ummah, but it happens. It's a sign that's going to repeat itself whenever the Muslims are weak in faith. Whenever Muslims leave Islam, this is their punishment for leaving Islam. So Sahaba, the companion, asked the Rasul, "Min qillatin nahnu yawma'idh, are we going to be little?" He said, "No, we'll be a lot, but like the foam of the beach water. When you go to the beach and the water hits the shore, it will have a foam. That foam is very weak, very feeble. So we'll be a lot, but we'll be weak." So they asked him, why? And he said, وَلَيَنْزَعَنَّ اللَّهَ مِنْ صُدُورِهِمِ الْمَهَابَةَ مِنْكُمْ وَلَيَقْذِفَنَّ اللَّهَ فِي قُلُوبِكُمُ الْوَهَنَ. That Allah will remove the fear of you from their heart. Who's there? Your enemy. Your enemy is not going to fear you anymore. They can curse Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, insult him, and don't worry about you. But like a brother the other day put on social network, they insulted the Zionist. Okay, and that newspaper was completely gone. Anyone insults the Holocaust, says anything bad, insults the Zionist, He's out of business, he's out of work, even though they are little. We are 1.7 billion and nobody respects us because Allah removed the fear of us from their heart. And where did He put it? He put it in our heart, but He said the word al-wahan. Al-wahan was a new word for the companions. So they asked him, what's al-wahan? They didn't understand what's al-wahan. He said, the love of this dunya and the hate of this. Is the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam asking us to go and commit suicide? No. He's asking us to have some pride in our religion. He's asking us to have some honor. We left our pride in our religion, we left our honor in our religion, and we loved it, and we looked at we are looking right now at our religion as something backward, and hence Allah put that fear in our heart and put the courage in the enemy's heart. And this is what we are living and seeing today. Okay? To the degree, one young Egyptian lady about 3 or 4 years ago, she was maybe 15 or 16 at that time. She wrote a poem, hypothetical poem. If Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi comes back and sees the Muslims the way they are, and sees Jerusalem is gone from him, is gone from the Muslims, would he be able to gather the Muslims and unite them? And in her poem, she summarized it that the Muslims will refuse to unite and fight under his leadership. They will actually go and tell him, go and get your army that you fought the Crusaders, bring them back and fight the enemy, because we are here, do not fight, we just make dua for you. Because why? Because we have that one, that fear, and that love of this dunya, and forgot about something called pride and honor. We left it all alone because this is something backward. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم استغفر الله إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Another hadith that we are suffering, and look, when Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam told it to us 1400 years ago, over 1400 years ago, and we're living it today. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, for lack of time I'm gonna go straight to the English translation. And this hadith is through the companions Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. He said, count 5 toward the day of judgment. If fornication should become widespread, you should realize that this has never happened without new diseases befalling the people, which their forebears never suffered. And fornication is widespread in the Muslim countries, and in a lot of them, only few of them punish the fornicator or the adulterer. The rest of them may be a fine, that's it. If people should begin to cheat in weighing out goods, one of the signs toward the end of the judgment is the increase of trade. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. Okay? But what's a bad thing is people start getting greedy and they start cheating. And when that happens, you should realize that this has never happened without drought and famine befalling the people. Okay? And we have drought and famine befalling the Muslim countries, and their rulers oppressing them. So you wonder why we have oppressors? Because we are not good. We're cheating in our work, we're cheating in our businesses. And because of one of the punishment of that is sending unto us rulers who oppress us. If people should withhold zakah, and we mentioned before that it's been calculated scientifically, that if every middle class Muslim and rich Muslim pay his or her zakah, there will not be one poor Muslim in the world. You should realize that this never happened if you don't pay your zakah without the rain being stopped from falling. And if it happened to fall, it will be for the sake of animals, not for the sake of us. So the rain is falling not for our sake, it's for the sake of animals. If people should break their covenant with Allah and His Messenger, because it's old-fashioned, like they say today, to hold the covenant with Allah and the Messenger is old-fashioned. This is what you hear. You should realize that this never happened without Allah sending an enemy against them to take some of their possessions by force. You see how we lost our lands, our countries? If the leaders do not govern according to the book of Allah, and none of them does, you should realize that this has never happened without Allah making them into groups and making them fight one another. Aren't we living this today? This is the problem we have in today. You have in countries, like in Jordan for example, they cancelled something in schoolwork, the historic map of Palestine. It doesn't exist. They put the map of the Zionist entity. You got the coup regime of the Republic of the Army in Egypt. Cancelled anything called Islamic studies in schools. There is no Islamic studies. Okay? It's old-fashioned. Cancelled anything called Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. No teaching of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi in schools. No teaching of Uqba ibn Nafi' radiallahu anhu, who was with Amr ibn al-As conquering Egypt, and he's the one with his military ingenuity conquered the rest of Western Arabia. No talk about Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih, the one who conquered Constantine, which is Turkey today, or Istanbul. Because all that incite violence. MashaAllah, they are the honorable Shurafa Mecca. They never raped women or killed innocent people or burned them alive. This is what we have today. This is what's happening. They are ashamed of something called Islam because it's backward. And what did Allah do to us? He divided us into groups, killing each other. To the degree Allah says in Surah Al-An'am, قُلْ هُوَ الْقَادِرُ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَبْعَثَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابًا مِنْ فَوْقِكُمْ أَوْ مِنْ تَحْتِ أَرْجُلِكُمْ أَوْ يُلْبِسُكُمْ شِيَعًا وَيُذِيقُ بَعْضُكُمْ بَأْسَ بَعْضٍ. That He is the one capable of sending punishment from above you. Tornadoes, rains, storms, whatever it is, tsunamis. Or تَحْتِ أَرْجُلِكُمْ. The extra increase of earthquakes these days. Or cover you with confusion and party strife, giving you a taste of mutual vengeance. Isn't that what we have today? Muslims killing each other? Why is that? Because we don't want to uphold the religion of Allah. It's old-fashioned. We want to leave it alone. And one of the punishment of that is, they say we are backward talking about Islam. Subhanallah, how Allah avenged us. If you read the seerah of Rasulullah of the political situation of the Arabs back in the days when they were humiliated and different tribes, they were puppets for the Persian Empire and puppets for the Roman Empire. Okay? 21st centuries, where are the Arabs? Some of them using Shia or the love of the Ahl al-Bayt as a political cause for the Wali al-Faqih in Iran to divide the Muslims. And Ahl al-Bayt and the Shia are innocent from all that. But they fell in the trap of who? They fell in the trap of the Persian Empire. They listened to them, they allowed them to fool them, to kill their own cousins. In Lebanon, Syria and Iraq. There are 100,000 marriages in Lebanon between Shia and Sunnis. 4 or 5 times that in Iraq. Cousins are killing cousins. The same thing in Yemen. Why? Because they listening, their allegiance is to the Persian Empire. And the rest, where is their allegiance? To Rome. Who's Rome? The US and the Europeans. Subhanallah, they told us we are backwards for upholding Islam. Allah put them backward to pre-Islamic errors. They are puppets either to the Persians or to the Romans. This is Allah's wrath on us. This is an open book test that we failed with a PhD degree. It's not like we didn't know that before. Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, when he liberated Jerusalem, he said, لَنْ يَعُودُوا إِلَيْهَا مَا دُمْنَا رِجَالًا. They will not come back to it as long as we are men. It's not only they came back to it in World War I. The Muslims, the Arabs specifically, helped them occupy Palestine. So they are not only not men, they are the youth. Who's the youth? The one who allows his mother, his sister, his daughter, his wife to do fornication or to do dates or to do something bad and doesn't do anything. This is where we are at today. It's not like the Rasul didn't warn us. He warned us, but we didn't listen. But at the end we will be victorious. It's like one of the sheikhs before he was locked up, Sheikh Dr. Mahmoud Shaban, before the coup regime in Egypt arrested him. He said, إذا بلغ الظلم مداه, if the oppression reaches its epic height, وتناسى الظالم الإله, and the oppressor forgot there is something called Allah, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لِلْمَظْلُومِ سِوَى اللَّهِ, and for the oppressed there is nobody else but Allah, وَكَانَ الْحَرْبُ عَلَى دِينِ اللَّهِ, and the war was on the religion of Allah. And the war on the religion of Allah is not only by non-Muslim, by so-called distorted images of so-called leaders call themselves Muslims. They are fighting Islam, and they're priding themselves of fighting Islam and giving security to the enemies of Islam. And this is not a conspiracy theory. You see it in all the mainstream media. It's at that time, he said, سَاعَتْهَا يَتَدَخَّلُ الْإِلَهِ. It's at that moment, Allah will intervene. And inshallah will be victorious, because we are very close to it. And I remind you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us and reminded us to send our prayers to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when he said, إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا إننا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة